Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honors to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Harakah Kodash, the Buana City Apostles of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations unto the elect of the nation of Israel. This is your brother Ayash Gabar from the GMS Virginia camp, coming at you with another lesson that I pray that you find edifying through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai. Prepare yourselves spiritually, mentally, because things are about to get hot. Things are about to get very heavy, and without this truth, without this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding being your stability of the times that you're in, you're just gonna crumble. You're gonna fold at everything that's about to happen. You're about to actually, let me bring out this precept first. The book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 14 and verse 14. Let go from the mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, and put off now the weak nature. And we have grown so accustomed to things of this world that has made us weak and reliant on a system that was designed to keep us dependent upon it. Well, now we're at a time where everything that you have been depending upon could be and will be taken away. And these are the things that the people have grown accustomed to, that depended upon their way of life. Food, water, safety, communication, health, money, honesty, obedience, commitment, trust, laws, rules, family, life, love, respect, mirth, song, dance, and many, many more things have made your life comfortable, to the point where you didn't think that any two of those things, or any three of those things, or even any one of those things would possibly go away. People don't think that the food is going to be in short demand, because it has never been in their lifetime. But there has been famines here in Babylon the Great that they just don't know about. And if they don't know about it, they weren't taught about it, they wouldn't know what to do about it. Water, there have been droughts here in Babylon the Great. The safety of individuals, depending on who the individual was, safety was more scarce than others. In other words, if you're a so-called Black, Hispanic, and Native American, you never felt a sense of safety here in Babylon the Great. And what sense of safety that you think you have is just an illusion to keep you preoccupied. Well, not even preoccupied. You know, it's a sense of illusion to think that you are safe, when in fact you're not. And they show you that every time they hang you, every time they murder you, every time they give you drugs that don't benefit you. There's no sense of safety here for Jake, because this was never meant to be your rest. This was meant to be for your chastisement. This was meant to be your punishment for going against Yahweh Bashem Yahushai and worshiping other idols and not returning unto him. This was meant to be your punishment. Communications has made people comfortable, because even though we're living in a time where people don't communicate the way that they did when I was growing up, there's still a sense of communication to find out what's going on. That's going away. The big topic in Babylon the Great and even the world nowadays is, grid down situations where you'll lose communications. The scriptures say that there's going to be a famine, not a famine of bread or water, but of hearing the word. And there's going to be a famine of bread and water as well. Your health. People are just so unhealthy that it's it's all by design. This 3 meal a day bullshit that we've grown up in has actually destroyed a lot of people. You wake up eating sugar, milk, and cereal is liquid and sugar. The milk wasn't good for you anyway. But you wake up eating milk and sugar if you had cereal, or eggs and swine and, grits or whatever. You ate breakfast at 8, and by 12, 1 o'clock you had lunch. And then a few hours later you had dinner and then a snack in between. So we've constantly have been feeding our faces as a sense of convenience, not so much as not so much as a sense of needing to, because here in Babylon the Great, everything is wasteful, or it has been wasteful. So a lot of times, a lot of people just ate because it was the thing to do. It was taught that way. It was conditioned in the household, 3 squares a day. When in fact, by the time you're done eating breakfast, you probably hadn't digested the food that you had the night before. So a lot of people's health is just off, and that's not to say, and well, not that, but you can even extend it, to say that, the food nowadays has no nutrients in it. And that too was by design. Money. They'll sit back and tell you that you need money to live. And you do need to make a wage, to live. Things do cost money, and it always has cost money. But people has gotten to the point where they've made money their lifelong goal. And so now they're constantly chasing the bag. Well, money's about to collapse. And you got people that at one point didn't believe it, but now some are starting to see it. And they're trying to prepare for it. Honesty. Your friends that you trusted will soon become your enemies. But then again, you got those people that would say, I would never betray you, brother. But we're entering into the time where, the scriptures say that brothers shall fight one against another, and swords in their hands. Or, nations shall fight with swords in their hands. Brother against brother, father against son, mother against daughter-in-law. I mean, it's just going to be all out calamities over here in Babylon the Great. But the people have said it wouldn't happen. It's happening. There's going to be no sense of obedience whatsoever. And you see that now, and even with, these people here in Babylon the Great. You see that within households, that there's no sense of obedience because there's no respect. Respect has gone through the window. There's no fear of the man. There's no fear of the authority figure of the household. They actually think it's the woman who runs the household. And and when this shit falls apart, it's gonna be a quick, it's gonna be a very quick thing, to see how little control these people have, to the point where their disobedience is going to turn into obedience, and their obedience is going to turn into disobedience, because they're not going to know who to trust. A lot of these people are about to run into a situation where they're just going to be confused, confounded. Commitments are going to go through the window. You are going to see separations in households. Wives have already done shit, to break the commitment with their husbands. Well, you're about to see it step up notches. You're about to see total calamity here in Babylon the Great. And you will be surprised. Well, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but you'll have some people that will be totally surprised on what a person would do just for a bowl of rice. And it's going to get that bad. The laws are going to be done away with. In fact, the laws have already been done away with. The people just didn't realize it yet. We're entering into a time of raw, without rule of law. People ain't gonna give a shit. Your family is gonna turn against you. Life that you know it is gonna be destroyed. There shall be no respect amongst men, no respect amongst women. The mirth is dying. The songs are shit. Dancing will be a thing of the past, because there will be no happiness in this place. It's just going to be all out chaos out here in Babylon the Great. So now isn't the time for you to hold on to things that don't matter if you're in this truth. 2/3 are going to hold on to whatever it is that they hold on to, and they're going to believe in the idols that they chose. But we of the hopeful elect, we got to start preparing to let this world go beyond what you think that you have already let it go. We have friends that, we still chill with, and, family members that you still adore or even admire. But if they're not in this truth, you really have to you really have to settle it in your heart that they're going to perish. And they may perish in the most disturbing way. And you just got to understand it's the will of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. You should already understand that at this point, if you've been in this a while. And if you're someone new, who have happened to come across these videos that bros are putting out, understand we're entering into the time of what the scriptures call Jacob's trouble. And men will have to be men, and women will resort to being women. There's going to be a huge turnaround in the way things play out during this period of chaos and mayhem. And you just got to prepare yourself and understand that anything in this fucking place is vanity. The book of Job, chapter 40 and verse 7, gird up thy loins now like a man. Yeah. In the old days, before our forefathers went to war, we would actually roll up our garments to our waistline and tie it off at the waistline, girded up. So when we went to war, our garments weren't hanging down to our ankles, they were out of the way and our legs would be exposed to the point where the garment wouldn't obstruct your movement. Because you have to understand what time you're in. You're not in a time where, it's a hot girl, a hot boy, anything. We are in hot times. We're in times where anything could pop off at any day. You could be at work and shit pop off and you'll never make it home. You could be home and shit pop off and you may never leave your house because of the lockdowns and the lack of power, the lack of energy, the lack of food. It's going to be so chaotic out here that you're not even going to want to leave your house. Homes will become coffins for a lot of people, especially a lot of women. A lot of women are about to die in their homes because they're going to be too afraid to leave their houses. Gird up thine loins now like a man. I will demand of thee and declare thou unto me. Yeah, gird up your loins. You, or not you, but gird up your loins, we prophets. We know what's coming. So we have to prepare ourselves to, deal with what's coming. We had to gird up our loins when we came out here on the highways and byways, and made our heads as adamant stones against these jakeheads. Well, we got to keep our loins girded because we have to wait upon Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua. And in that waiting time, we have to ordeal, these troubling times. We got to go through it. We gotta see the death. We have to see the judgments. Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua is not a respecter of person. He's gonna slay utterly women, children, maids, men. The death toll is gonna be greater than any Arnold Schwarzenegger, Rambo, and Bruce Willis movie combined 1,000 times over. The blood is going to be as high as a horse's, what do you call it, girdle? The thing that goes in a horse's mouth. I might be pronouncing it wrong, but there's going to be so much blood, so much death, so much judgment. And we got to prepare for that because we are definitely in that time when shit could just pop off at any time. And needless to say, some bros will get turned in by other bros. You got to prepare your mind for that too. You have to be prepared for betrayal amongst the brotherhood. You have to prepare yourself for these things. Why? Because Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua said that these things will happen to some men. The book of Galatians chapter 2 and verse 4. And that because of false brethren unawares brought in, who came in privately to spy out our liberty, which we have in Yahushua HaMashiach, that they might bring us unto bondage. So, there's brothers within the camps that are just spies, and those men are gonna go through horrible deaths. They're going to go through horrible deaths. But you have to prepare yourselves. You have to prepare your minds for that in particular encounter. Aside from not having food, water, safety, communications, health, money, commitment, trust. Besides not having any of those things that we talked about earlier. This is an add-on that we need to keep in mind. Gird up. Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua has not given us the spirit of fear, but of a sound mind. And we get that sound mind because We were given the playbook early. Let me see what else I want to get. This ain't gonna be a long lesson, but it's gonna be to the point where, you know, now is the time to put off that weak nature and gird up. Now is the time to prepare your hearts for the time that we're in. The book of Matthew, chapter 10 and verse. Actually, I go to Luke 12 and 51. Suppose ye that I come to give peace on earth. A lot of people who are not expecting the times that are coming expect peace on earth. That's why you have a lot of people talking about that they don't think World War III is going to happen. They don't think that a famine is going to happen. They don't think that the economy is going to collapse. They don't think that Babylon the Great is going to be destroyed by nuclear weapons. They don't think. Well, when these things start coming to pass, then, as they're starting to do now, then they're going to realize that a prophet has been among them, telling them these things from the very beginning of this ministry during this time, starting with our elder apostles, bishops, and elders on down. These people are about to come asking questions. That's why it's important for bros to be on point, and just deal with the milk, deal with the basics, because we're not in a time where, these dark sayings need to be brought out. The dark sayings were for us to understand more and maybe get into it a little deeper for bros, uh, 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 um, coming into it and joining camps and stuff, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? But the point I'm trying to get at is that these dark sayings that we are privy to understand are, I'm not saying that they're less important, but we're not at the point where those need to be explained at the level that we learned them at dealing with Jake, because Jake really don't care, because it's going to get so bad that Jake is just going to want to know what he or she needs to do to be saved. It's my point. Jake's going to be like, look, I don't care about all that. What do I need to do to be saved? I said all of that just to get to that point, but Yahweh Shem Yahushai is about to wreak havoc in the earth. Suppose ye that I am come to give peace on earth. I tell you nay, but rather division. And that's what Jake needs to understand. That's a part of that milk. That's a part of that understanding that Jake may need, because he or she is going to need to know that you're going to be betrayed by family members. He or she is going to need to know that there's going to be a famine. He or she is going to know not to take the MOTB. Him or she is going to need to know, regardless to what happens in the flesh, don't take that MOTB. Don't do it. The book of Matthew, chapter 10 and verse 34. And Salakia for that if I sound a little confusing, but I think the point was made in the end when, I was just saying that Jake just needs to know the milk at this point, what he or she may need to do in order to be saved. And that's repent and call upon the two names that are needed for salvation. For there are two names given in which you must be saved. And those names are Yahweh Wa Yahweh Shai. What we say is Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, which is the name of the Father and the name of the Son. Yahweh is the name of the Father, Bahashem in the name, Yahweh Shai is the Son. Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. And you got to believe on those names. Unwavering. You fuck around and call on Beavis if you want to. You won't get far. The book of Matthew, chapter 10 and verse 34. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth, but a sword. I come not to send peace. So I can read that again. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I come not to send peace, but a sword. For I am come to set a man at variance against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And I brought this out earlier, and I forgot I even got this precept on deck. You know? Because it's about to get bad, bros. The book of Isaiah, chapter 33, and verse 6, I brought this out too. And like I said, I forgot I even had this on deck. The book of Isaiah, chapter 33, and verse 6, and wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua is his treasure. We have to prepare ourselves because Yahweh Bashim Yahushua has already told us what's going to happen. You know, we prophesy in part. So we look at what's going on in the world and we line it up with the scriptures. That's why the brothers here at GMS are watchmen, you know. Every brother's paying attention to something that's going on in the earth and bringing it to the attention of other brothers, you know, breaking it down in the scriptures. You know, and that's the gauge that Yahweh Bashim Yahushua set apart from his men from other camps, because these other camps can't gauge it like that. The Spirit has got to be dealing with you in order for you to even gauge what's happening and line it up with the scriptures the way we do here at GMS. These other camps don't go into that because they haven't been given that breath. Yeah, okay, but they might see some things happening in the earth, you know, and then, bring it out. But a clock is right at least 2 times in a day. You know, these other camps don't go into prophecies the way we here at GMS do. Because knowledge and wisdom is going to be the stability of that time. You know, and that's another thing that cracks me up too, you know what I'm saying? Because when you watch these other, YouTubers and, I get a kick out of these prepper channels or these news events or these independent news people that that if you let them tell it, they're constantly in what's the word I'm looking for? They're constantly in fear. Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. You know, the one that kills me is this cat that says, "I am Louise, and welcome to the some shit news channel. We got breaking news. I broke a toenail." It's like, bro, look, stop. You know, not everything's breaking news. Well, to you it might be because you don't understand the scriptures. But to the men of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, is more information that, we filter through the scriptures, to put the puzzle together. And there's breaking news. But the way they tell it, bro, there's a breaking news every fucking 20 minutes. And it's hilarious sometimes to me that I sit back and I'm like, bro, these people have no idea. That could just be me looking at, these people just wig the fuck out over information. But nonetheless, knowledge and wisdom still be the stability of that times. Let me see what else I want to get. Oh yeah, Khan. So it's very important that you seek Yahweh Bashim Yahushua before it's too late. Because and stick with it until the end. Stick with it until the end. Don't deviate. Don't take your hand off the plow. Endure until the end. He that endureth to the end, the same shall be saved. endure, you know, put on that good fight of faith. Believe in Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. And this goes for me too. I pray that Yahweh Hashem Yahushua that I don't faint, in the time of trouble. And we're in the flesh, so we're going to have fears. Yahweh Shai had fears, before he had to go through it. He had to go through. The book of Sirach, chapter 32 and verse 14. And this is a continuation from let me see. What is it? A continuation? 32:14. This is a continuation from. Actually, I didn't even bring this out, so I'm not even going to bring out that precept. I'll end it off on this. Salakia, bros. I'll end it off on this. The book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 14 and verse 15. And set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee from these times. Yeah, don't don't put your trust in Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Lean upon him. That's what he wants you to do. He wants you to lean on him for all things. We had to lean on this devil for the one of all things. Yahweh Hashem Yahushua wants us to have that switch, to turn off these wicked motherfuckers and lean on him. So set the thoughts that are heavy for you. That's why I brought out, gird up thy loins as a man. Prepare yourselves for what's coming. If you happen to lose your place or your residence, understand that it's the will of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. If you don't eat on Monday, it's the will of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. If you lose your job, it's the will of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Because we're in that time where any one of these things can happen. The scriptures does say that be ye pilgrims upon the earth. You may have to move. Yahweh Shai said that the Son of Man didn't even have to have a place to rest his head. So again, the servant is not greater than his master in these times. You're going to lose the comfortabilities that you've had. And you got to prepare for these things. There are people out there that's about to lose sleep. And sleep deprivation is a fucking big deal. It's enough to drive people crazy. But we have to hope for elect. Or get a good night's sleep. Because we're praying for that hedge. We're praying to be protected. Even though we're going to have to go through Jacob's trouble, we're praying to be delivered out of these things. And haste ye from these times. Lord, please get us out of here. Please. Anyhow, this was just a quick lesson that was on my spirit, because laws are being made over here in Babylon the Great, and we're getting closer and closer into that time where the persecution is going to happen. They're already trying to set it up on multiple levels. You just got to prepare yourself for these things. Anyhow, so with that, I'd like to give all praise, glory, and honors to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Harakak Wadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations unto the elect of the nation of Israel. Let this shit go. Because the kingdom of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai is at hand. Shalom.